Hello and welcome to Lyra Nara. Today's video is the first episode in a series of videos that we have created in which we are going to present to you solutions that don't cost you a dime in order to prevent health conditions, maintain your health, and also deal with existing health conditions. And that's right, solutions that don't cost you a single penny, just the effort you have to put into your lifestyle changes. And in this first episode, we're going to concentrate on the obesity crisis, the health problems that obesity causes, all the changes in your organism, go through the most popular diets and teach you which one is the best for you, and also talk about the importance of fasting, especially intermittent fasting, for maintaining your health and also dealing with existing health conditions. So without further ado, let's get right into it and learn more about this fascinating subject. But before you do that, of course, so you don't miss out on further episodes on this subject, please subscribe and also hit the notifications button. And we all know that we are in an obesity crisis nowadays. It's not only in the US, it's becoming a worldwide epidemic. And the funny thing about it is that majority of the US population is interested in losing weight. Surveys clearly show that most adults are trying to lose or at least maintain weight. The funny thing is though that nevertheless the prevalence of overweight people and obesity has increased dramatically and steadily over the past 30 years. Currently, 50% of all adult Americans are considered overweight or obese. So why is that? Excess weight is clearly associated with increased mortality and morbidity. We cannot deny that. The science clearly has proven that. With cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, strokes, gallbladder diseases, osteoarthritis, sleep apnea, and respiratory problems, and even some types of cancer being some of the very well-known side effects or negative effects of excess weight. So the people know that clearly, it's not disputable, and still we are becoming more and more obese. And obesity-related conditions are significantly improved actually, even with a very modest weight loss of 5 to 10% per year. So it's totally achievable to lose weight, and we're gonna show you how in this presentation. Problem is that most people have goals and expectations from their diet that are truly unrealistic for even the best available diets and treatments. And this, of course, brings frustration when you want to lose 20% of your weight in a couple of months. This will be very hard and this will frustrate you, and you're gonna give up on it. So this is one of the main problems. Also, of course, the primary goals of diets for most people, and surveys clearly show that, are appearance and physical comfort rather than a change in their medical conditions. So most people don't even think about health when they think about losing weight. They are not aware, and we must become more aware of the fact that, as Hippocrates already said, let food be your medicine. So our food is extremely important, not only for how we look, but also for our overall health. And we're going to go into more detail, of course, on this subject in the course of this presentation. So is it then any wonder that overweight individuals are willing to try any new diet that promises quick, dramatic results, more in line with their desired goals and expectations than with what is possible according to good science? So, are popular diets effective for weight loss and or weight maintenance? Let's answer this question. And as you all know, there is a myriad of diets out there, millions of books, the keto diet, the paleo diet, the vegetarian, the vegan, Mediterranean, raw diet, etc., etc. So it's quite difficult to categorize, but still we can put all of those diets into three simple categories. They are the high fat, low carbohydrates and high protein diets. High fat means at least 55 to 65% of your diet consists of fat. Popular diets that we all know about that fall into this category are, for example, the Atkins diet, but also all types of ketogenic diets. Then we have the moderate fat diets, 20 to 30% only fat, 15 to 20% protein, and 55 to 60% carbohydrates. Those are called also balanced nutrition reduction diets. They are high in carbohydrates and moderate in protein. Some of those that you might know about are, for example, the Weight Watchers programs or the USDA Food Guide Pyramid or the so-called DASH diet. And then the third category is low-fat diets with 11 to 19% and very low-fat diets with less than 10% diet. They are very high in carbohydrates. They are moderate protein diets or no protein when it comes to extreme examples such as veganism. Into this category, some popular ones are Dr. Dean Ornish's program for reversing heart disease, the Eat More program, the Weigh Less program, and the new Pritikin program, just as examples, but also vegan diets fall into this category. But which diet is best now? Well, as body weight decreases, so does body fat and lean body mass. The optimal diet for weight loss is therefore one that maximizes loss of body fat and minimizes loss of lean body mass. And the facts are very clear on that. All diets, and I repeat, all diets which reduce caloric intake result in weight loss. So it's very simple to choose your diet, because all of them, as long as you reduce your caloric intake, will result in weight loss. In the absence of physical activity, a diet that contains 1400 to 1500 calories per day, regardless even of its macronutrient composition, will result in weight loss. Individuals that consume high-fat, low-carbohydrate diets may lose weight because the intake of protein and fat is self-limiting and overall caloric intake is decreased. Low-fat and very low-fat diets contain high proportion of complex carbohydrates, fruits and vegetables, and they are naturally high therefore in fiber and low in caloric density. So individuals therefore consuming these types of diets consume fewer calories and also lose weight. Balanced nutrition reduction diets contain moderate amounts of fat, carbohydrates and protein, and when overall caloric intake is reduced, these diets result again in loss of body weight and body fat. Importantly, moderate fat, balanced nutrient reduction diets produce weight loss even when they are consumed ad libitum. In sum, all popular diets, as well as diets recommended by governmental and non-governmental organizations, they all result in weight loss as long as you reduce your calorie intake per day. In the short term, however, high-fat, low-carbohydrate, ketogenic diets cause a greater loss of body water than body fat, and therefore when these diets end, water weight is regained quickly, and if the diet is maintained long-term, it results in loss of body fat eventually. So that's why some people may tell you that, yeah, with a ketogenic diet, I've lost weight quicker. There are some differences, by the way, in the speed at which you lose weight between all of those diets, but this depends very much also on your genetics, on individual factors. So we can generalize and say all of the diets, as long as you eat less, will result in a weight loss. Also important is, by the way, physical activity. It's a very important factor with respect to lean body mass, and therefore you should pay attention to your physical activity as well in order to enhance the effects of any diet on your body composition. Let's look next at the metabolism changes in your body when you are going onto one of those diets. A high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet results in ketosis and may cause a significant increase in blood uric acid concentrations. Also, blood lipid levels, meaning total cholesterol, low-density lipoprotein, high-density lipoprotein, and and triglycerides, they decrease as body weight decreases with any diet. Also, the macronutrient and fatty acid composition of energy-restricted diets can exert substantial effects on blood lipids, and there are significantly greater decreases in LDL cholesterol during active weight loss when diets are low in saturated fatty acids. Changes in HDL cholesterol depend on dietary fat content and the duration of energy restriction as well. Also, moderate fat, balanced nutrient reduction diets reduce LDL cholesterol and normalize the ratio of HDL cholesterol to TC. Plasma TG levels also decrease with weight loss in general, although they increase in response to short-term consumption of a very low-fat, high-carbohydrate diet. And the type of carbohydrates consumed must be also considered. High fiber foods, including vegetables and legumes, do not lead to hypertriglyceridemia and may easily be incorporated into moderate fat, balanced nutrient reduction diets to help normalize plasma TG levels. Also important to know is that energy restriction, independent of diet composition, improves glycemic control. So as body weight decreases, so does blood insulin and plasma leptin levels. Also, blood pressure decreases with weight loss, independent of diet composition again. When we talk about diets, we also need to talk about proper food choices because they are always important when you consider the nutritional quality of a diet. When you consume foods from all food groups, it is more likely that your diet will be nutritionally adequate. So we truly do not recommend, and science does not recommend, that you go into extremes of ends of those diet spectrum, for example, veganism or an extreme high-fat ketogenic diet. The moderate fat, balanced nutrient reduction diet is optimal for ensuring adequate nutritional intake. However, poor food choices may result in inadequate levels of nutrients such as calcium, iron, and zinc, regardless of overall macronutrient composition. On the other hand, high-fat, low-carbohydrate diets are nutritionally inadequate, as I've mentioned, and so are the very low-fat diets, such as veganism. The high-fat diets are low in vitamins E, A, thiamine, B6, folate, calcium, magnesium, iron, potassium, and dietary fiber, and they therefore require supplementation. So you can go on those diets, but you require definitely supplementation. And these diets are also the high-fat diets, very high in saturated fat and cholesterol. On the other hand, very low-fat diets are low in vitamins E, B12, and zinc because meat and fat intake is low or non-existent. So you need to supplement for those diets as well. Let's look also at the role hormones play in weight loss and weight maintenance. Because there are more than 100 hormones in our human body, but only 2 of them play a leading role in managing our daily hungry levels, and those are called ghrelin and leptin. And these chemical messengers tell your brain when it's time to eat and when you've had enough. They help to manage your energy levels also and maintain a healthy body weight. Ghrelin and leptin regulate appetite and hunger. Leptin suppresses hunger, and ghrelin increases hunger. Ghrelin is produced in the stomach, then enters the bloodstream to signal to the brain that you are ready for a meal, and when your stomach is empty, the levels of ghrelin will rise sharply, but once you've eaten, it drops for around 3 to 4 hours as you digest your food. Its counterpart, leptin, is produced primarily in the body's fat tissues. Leptin puts the brakes on your food intake, so to speak, messaging your brain to indicate when you've had enough. Leptin is an important weight loss hormone because it doesn't just monitor your meal size, it also is thought to stimulate your metabolism. Its messages regularly update the brain on the status of your body's energy stores, so when they need topping up and when it's safe to burn some off. And when leptin and its receptors function normally, you will be able to eat to the point of satisfaction and walk away from the table without wanting one more bite. However, there are leptin-resistant people, and in leptin-resistant people, the brain doesn't listen to the leptin, which means there isn't any drop in appetite. And because the brain doesn't get a signal to stop eating, they feel even hungrier and can gain body fat, of course. And more body fat means more leptin, that doesn't do its job, and they end up eating more, so it becomes a vicious cycle. So how can we keep those two very important hormones balanced? When it comes to leptin resistance, it is not clear yet what exactly causes it, but we know it's strongly correlated with obesity. And research published, for example, in the Journal of Endocrinology and Metabolism suggests that it can be triggered by prolonged periods of overeating. The hunger hormone ghrelin also encourages abdominal fat storage, which is problematic because this kind of fat is considered particularly dangerous because of it is related to fatty liver disease and type 2 diabetes. So keeping ghrelin in check is important not just for your weight but your overall health. And what can we do about keeping ghrelin and leptin in a balanced state? Well, the lack of sleep can affect those hormones. So lifestyle habits can have a big impact on hormonal function. One of the biggest ones is sleep. And lack of sleep leads to increased levels of ghrelin and lower levels of leptin, increasing appetite thereby and the snacking desire the following day. A major study, for example, analyzed more than 1,000 volunteers and found out that those who regularly slept 5 hours only per night had 14.9% more ghrelin and 15.5% less leptin in the system than those that were logging a full 8 hours of sleep. Stress is also often a side effect of poor sleep, and it can also be a trigger for spiking ghrelin. Ghrelin is elevated following chronic stress and may lead to undesirable consequences over a long period of time. Eating fat-rich food and foods that are high in sugar also activates an inflammatory response in the hypothalamus, which is the main appetite center in the brain, which again disrupts signals from those hunger hormones, and this again can lead to a resistance to leptin and an increase in body weight. So, eat regular meals that contain enough kilojoules or calories and nutrients to meet your individual requirements. Try to avoid both extremes of eating. Eating too much is bad and being too restrictive also. And this will help you maintain your levels of leptin and ghrelin in perfect balance. That means that drastic diets are out of question, as they all send ghrelin into overdrive. There's also another rule that says that you should eat until you feel about 80% full. This is a good guideline to follow. It's known also as hara hachibu in Japanese. It allows your brain and body the time they need to register how much you've eaten. And with that, we come to what we have called the golden rules of eating. What is important in order to maintain weight and also lose some? First and foremost, do not overeat, do not oversize your portions, also do not overdrink, of course, especially when it comes to alcoholic beverages. Also pay attention to a balanced nutrition. As we've discussed, all of these extreme diets, they all lead to nutritional deficiencies in the long term. And you can go on a lot of diet forums and read about those people that started off being extremely happy with their chosen diet, but then they were experiencing serious health effects a couple years later. So pay attention to a balanced nutrition. Also, eat slowly, a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes. You can even stretch it up to 90 minutes per meal. Eat also consciously and mindfully up to the moment that you are feeling only about 80% saturated, so do not overeat again. Also use healthy, fresh ingredients. Enjoy the good smells of those ingredients, the colors of the food. Create also eating rituals with your loved ones. Celebrate cooking and food. It's not just a necessity. We don't appreciate food like people, for example, in Europe, in France, in Italy, in other parts of the world, who are, surprisingly enough, a lot less obese than we are. So celebrate cooking and food. When you cook yourself, you will be also likely to be less hungry. Never eat in front of your computer or TV because as you are not concentrating on eating, this will distract you from your internal signals that tell you when you've had enough. So you will not feel saturated when you actually are, because your brain is occupied with something else, the TV in this case, or your computer. So sit down and concentrate, eat mindfully and concentrate only on the food and enjoying the good smells and colors and the company, hopefully, of your loved ones. Also, always sit down when eating for the same reasons, because otherwise your body does not register that it's had enough already. And when you adhere to those principles, I'm sure that you will be healthy and also lose weight. And of course, when you do not eat too much, you reduce your caloric intake, you will certainly, as we have seen, scientifically proven, lose weight. Another great way of preventing disease, dealing with existing conditions, and also just maintaining your health is fasting. Why? Because most tissues in our bodies regularly replace themselves with new ones. Different organs need different speeds and times to renew completely, and some tissues do not replace themselves at all, but most of them do. So the question then is, where do all of those dead cells end up? How do our cells get rid of this waste? And that's where we come to what is called autophagy, which means that the cells have special recycling centers called lysosomes that contain special digestive enzymes which help them consume worn out and damaged tissues, food particles, bacteria, viruses, and other debris, and convert it into new cells. And with the help of those lysosomes, the body can decompose different proteins into essential amino acids, which our body can then use to create new cells. So do you then need animal protein to build those new cells? Well, scientific studies have found out that people who do not eat animal protein still have the same amount of protein and carbohydrates in their digestive system. Why is that so? Well, because the body can use its own proteins, which is created from the dead cells, bacteria, etc., for cell renewal. Every day our body actually needs to replace between 7 and 10 ounces of protein, but the average person consumes only about 2.5 ounces per day, which is clearly not enough to build new cells. So where does this additional energy come from? Well, this comes from autophagy, which makes up those missing proteins. So therefore, if autophagy does not work properly in a person, you can develop serious illnesses like type 2 diabetes, Parkinson's, age-related diseases, even cancer. And as dead and damaged cells start to accumulate in your body, you end up with a body that is unable to neutralize cancer cells and the cells that are infected by bacteria and viruses. And there are many, many advantages to fasting, and we're also going to talk about which way is the best way to fast. It also depends on you, of course. But the advantages are clearly demonstrated in scientific studies over and over again. The autophagy that we've discussed is stronger when the body undergoes some form of stress, such as fasting, calorie restriction, and or starvation. So in order to trigger this autophagy, it's good actually to put the body through some kind of stress such as fasting. Because the cells then start to use the cellular debris and the pathogenic bacteria, etc., to produce energy and new cells. And the body creates the necessary amount of proteins and also cleans itself at the same time. So when you fast, your cells live longer, you produce more energy, and you have fewer inflammations. Also, reduced calorie intake results in NO levels increasing, and NO helps detoxify and rejuvenate your body. The question then becomes, what type of fasting should I follow? And we clearly recommend intermittent fasting. So this simply means that you alternate periods of eating with periods of fasting. It helps your body clean itself, you will lose weight, and you will also speed up your metabolism. It also leads to a decreased risk of heart diseases, neurological problems, or diabetes. It also reduces inflammation, oxidative stress, blood pressure, and can even protect against cancer. It clearly improves longevity and balances out cholesterol levels as well. And there are many types of intermittent fasting. I'm going to present to you some of the more popular ones. First one being the so-called 24-hour fast. Simply, you select a day during the week on which you do not eat at all. For example, have only breakfast today, and then 24 hours from now you will have a regular breakfast again. In those 24 hours you will not eat anything. Another variation of intermittent fasting is called fasting on alternate days. So you eat regularly one day and fast the next day. You can still eat on those fasting days as well to make it easier for yourself, but you must reduce caloric intake from, let's say, 2000 calories per day to only 500 on a fasting day. You could also skip meals. So it is enough to skip actually only one meal per day to boost your metabolism and also trigger cleansing processes in your body. But be careful, do not overeat at the next meal because you've skipped one with this method. We also have daily window fasting. So you eat all of your meals in 8 hours during the day and eat nothing for the rest of the day. It's also known as 16-8 fasting, because for 16 hours you eat nothing and for 8 you eat. At the beginning, you can actually start with longer eating intervals to again make it easier for yourself. For example, you can start with 14-10, so your eating period is 10 hours and your fasting period 14. You can also do water fasting. You choose one day during the week when you drink only water or freshly squeezed juices without sugar. Best time for this type of fasting is during spring, but it can be followed throughout the year. If you are not vegetarian, it is recommended that you at least have an animal protein-free day or some of them actually during the week. Otherwise, your body has not enough motivation to recycle dead cells to get the necessary protein. And with all that being said, let's sum it all up and come to some conclusions. We clearly suffer from a worldwide global obesity crisis that has serious health effects. So obesity, as we've clearly shown, is not only bad for how you look, it clearly has detrimental health effects. The good news is that all caloric intake reductions, regardless of diet type, will result in weight loss. So the only thing you have to do in order to lose weight is reduce your caloric intake per day, keep it balanced, and otherwise you don't have to adhere to any of those extreme diets that you hear about. Some popular diets actually, such as the ketogenic diets that you hear a lot about now in the news, or veganism, can lead to serious health consequences in the long term, so after some years, as they all lead to nutritional deficiencies. So very careful, if you want to follow veganism or ketogenic diets, do it by all means, but be careful with the supplementation that you also need in order to remain nutritionally balanced. Vegans, for example, are deficient in vitamins B12, K2, vitamin E, and many more, and there are similar deficiencies in ketogenic diets, of course. Problematic for those people is that the health effects are felt only after years and years, and people then are unwilling to relate their health problems to their diet, which helped them initially feel so much better. Also, you must start to celebrate eating culture. Take your time, eat slowly, because the saturation feeling comes in only about 20 minutes. So if you've eaten much more in those 20 minutes, the saturation feeling is still gonna come only after 20 minutes. So you have a much higher caloric intake within those 20 minutes. So eat slowly, mindfully, enjoy the smells and the colors of the food. Do not overeat. Do not consume too much processed foods and sugar, of course. Share your self-cooked healthy meals with your loved ones and eat balanced. Also, you must follow intermittent fasting in any of its forms. It is in any of its forms, as we've seen, a great way to lose weight, but not only that, maintain weight and, most importantly, trigger autophagy and therefore detox processes in your body that are very crucial for you in order to remain healthy. And with that, I hope that you've enjoyed this presentation. If you did so, please support our work, like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions, I'm going to post the contact information in the box below. You can visit also lyranara.com and lyranara.me. And until next time, stay healthy.